Welcome to the Real Estate Espresso Podcast, your morning shot of what's new in the world of real estate investing. I'm your host, Victor Menashe. On today's show, we're talking about the recent spate of tornadoes. These tornadoes have hit the Midwest and cut a swath of damage, destruction, and death across several states. The storms hit populated areas including Dayton, Ohio, and Kansas City. Over 100 tornadoes have hit the Midwest in the last 12 days alone. Federal government forecasters have logged preliminary reports of more than 500 tornadoes in the past 30 days. These storms touch down quickly and offer little time to escape, especially in heavily populated areas where you don't have a clear line of sight to the horizon. Some people become complacent and ignore the severe weather alerts that are broadcast onto cell phones using the emergency preparedness system. Even areas that are not known for tornado activity, like New Jersey and Staten Island, the heart of New York City, have had tornado warnings this week. They truly can strike anywhere. Last summer, 4 tornadoes narrowly missed our home in Ottawa, Canada. A particularly destructive storm splintered homes, ripped up trees, and downed power lines southwest of Kansas City. One of our regular listeners to the show had a tornado damage their car, uproot trees, and destroy multiple homes in their neighborhood. Their own home, fortunately, was spared a direct hit, and the impact was a lengthy loss of electricity. Every year, homeowners dutifully pay their insurance premium, expecting that they will be covered against major risks like tornadoes. But I've got to tell you, insurance companies are not in the habit of losing money, so it's important to read your policy carefully. They're happy to take your money, but when it comes time to making a claim, they become your legal adversary. Policies come in one of 2 major types. There are what are called named peril policies and broad form policies. In a named peril policy, you're insured against specific risks that are named in the policy. These usually include policy limits both in terms of the scope of coverage and dollar limits for each named risk. If your risk isn't specifically insured, then you're probably not covered. The second type of policy is a broad form policy. This covers basically everything, and the exclusions are named specifically. Broad form policies generally cover more. But either way, you still want to read the policy and ensure yourself that you're properly covered. Tornadoes represent several major risks. These include wind, hail, flooding, and fire. You might discover that the insurance company will attempt to assess which damage was caused by wind and which was caused by water. Water damage is the number 1 category for insurance claims in the country and is therefore subject to the greatest limitations. You may be able to purchase a separate flood insurance policy through the National Flood Insurance Program, but only 12% of homes in the U.S. actually have flood insurance coverage. The remaining 88% are making the bet that they will not experience that risk, or they mistakenly think that they are covered. However, if rain gets into your home because your roof was damaged by wind, you may find that the insurance will offer some protection, or it may not, but only if your policy includes coverage for wind. Some policies that offer wind coverage list named storms as exclusions. For example, if a storm is given a specific name, like say Hurricane Andrew, that would be excluded from the policy coverage. Tornadoes are so short-lived that they're not named. By the time you could give them a name, the storm is over. Flood insurance isn't just for homes in high-risk areas. FEMA says that all 50 states have experienced floods or flash floods in the past 5 years, and more than 20% of the claims it handles come from moderate to low-risk areas. Some of the things that may not be covered by a flood policy include moisture or mold damage that could have been avoided by the homeowner, things like precious metals and paper certificates like stock certificates. Outdoor property such as patio furniture, decks, landscaping, things like that are simply not covered. Your living expenses, unless specifically provided for, are not covered in your policy. And your vehicles like your cars and RVs, those are also not covered by flood insurance. In addition, you'll find that flood insurance provides limited, if any, coverage for below-ground rooms like your basement and the contents. Some items in these spaces, like the furnace, are typically covered under building coverage, but the washer and dryer are usually covered under personal effects. And some items may not be covered at all if they're contained in your basement. It's super important to read the policy, not just the 1-page term sheet that your insurance broker gives you. Ask your broker for a full copy of your insurance policy and take the time to read it. I know they're long and complex and often with contradictory language, but definitely take the time to read it. As you're thinking about that, have an awesome rest of your day. Go make some great things happen. I'll talk to you again tomorrow.